Yeah, and teams have attacked Clemson like they do Georgia Tech, even though we're not the same style of team. Teams have committed to just putting a ton of pressure on Cade, and it's gone a little bit sideways. You'd think, if you're Cade, like, okay, if I'm just one-on-one coverage on the outside for most of this game, I'm going to be able to get a few of these off for 40 or 50 yards. And I haven't watched obviously a ton of Clemson football. I mean, have you dialed up some of those?
I mean, they've tried, and I think some of it is just. I mean, Cade has flat out missed guys. I think that's been the most frustrating thing watching him is, there've been layups that have been missed, and either he just didn't throw them or it was an inaccurate pass, and that's kind of one of the frustrating things about going back and watching some of these games, and. I think it's not just on him. Obviously, the offensive line holding up has been a problem, and really, I think some of their better receivers, have been up and down. T.J. Moore through 2 games only has 5 catches. I mean, he came in 5-star wide receiver last year, kind of broke onto the scene towards the back stretch of last year. Really had a really nice game against Texas, and he's come into this season, and it's been tough sledding. I mean, he hasn't finished some of the opportunities he has gotten. There were a couple of big plays that against Troy that he in LSU that he wasn't able to come down with the football. The plays that he made last year, I think it's going to. He's still kind of – I think he's the one that's really still developing in a lot of ways. He's just really naturally raw talent. But, I think Bryant Wesco kind of had a nice bounce-back performance last week. We'll definitely have to see more of him. And I think the guy that should be more featured in the offense that just he hasn't gotten the opportunities, even though they've been there, has been Tyler Brown, who's been an Antonio Williams replacement in the slot. I mean, he's been open a lot. I mean, he looks really good. I mean, he was coming off of injury from last season, and he looks like, I mean, he's really developed physically, and he looks really good out there. You're just like, okay, why is he not getting the football? So, Cade, really, the theme is Cade developing chemistry with the rest of his wide receivers, not named Antonio Williams, and that's been the thing that's been surprising, because especially with Tyler Brown, because he was a freshman All-American 2 seasons ago with Cade at quarterback.
Yeah, I guess that's confusing to me as not a Clemson fan, because it's not like you have a new OC. You have a lot of returning pieces on the offense, one of the most in the country. So I guess, like, what do you attribute this? What feels like a regression or feels like chemistry loss, or you're just not gelling? Like, what do you attribute that to?
I mean, it's kind of puzzling as a Clemson fan to watch a little bit, because you mentioned all the returning talent. Essentially, Clemson only turned over talent at the tight end position and the running back position. That's really all we're replacing on the entire offense. And that was an offense that was, pretty explosive last year. And as the season went on, they got really good, outside of the running game at the back end of last season because of Phil Moffitt's injury. But you really thought and you really felt good coming into this season with kind of where our offense was going to be. I thought we would hit the ground running. Again, I always knew LSU was going to be a tough game. I had no inclination of, Clemson going in there and just splattering LSU in any way. I knew that was going to be a close game. But the offense certainly has looked nothing like any of us thought it would. And I think part of it is the offensive line in particular is not playing as well as we thought they would. They took a huge step last year under Matt Luke in year 1. And this year it looks like they've kind of regressed a little bit. And then your best player on the field, the leader of your team, your quarterback, he hasn't played well. I mean, just flat out, like, just being honest, Cade Klubnik hasn't played well this year. And I think with those 2 particular position groups, and then, we've had some drops with the wide receivers. Jordan mentioned, more there. And he's had some drops. Wesco's had some drops. And then obviously the injury to your star wide receiver in Antonio Williams. And I think it's a lot of little things. But Clemson just can't seem to, they haven't as of yet seemed to kind of hit that stride. They need a game where it kind of clicks offensively for them. Right. I don't know that it's going to be against Georgia Tech this week. That's a tough opponent, but they really need to see the offense kind of just click for them. And it's been an uphill battle all season. And there's a lot of position groups that you felt like you knew what you were going to get, we've kind of gotten the opposite.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Gideon thus far has been fairly aggressive. Now, Blake Gideon never called plays before. He has been fairly aggressive in his play calling. I feel like that's because he knows the weak point of that defense is the defensive line. And I would think coming into this game, his thought would be, well, Cade's looking to find his confidence. Let's not let him find that. Let's be aggressive. Let's blitz. And see what happens, and see if he can beat us through the air. I guess we'll see.
If I was Georgia Tech, that's exactly what I would do. I would come after Cade over and over again until proven that it's not going to work.
Yeah,
I would make him prove me wrong. That he's going to be able to stand in the face of that pressure, keep his eyes downfield, read what he's seeing in the back end, and deliver good footballs. Because he has not shown that so far this season. So if I was the Georgia Tech defensive coordinator, that's exactly what I would do. I would bring a lot of pressure, and I would try to ramp up, the stress and the anxiety, and try to get in his head early and hit him early. And then hopefully we can hold up in the back end and we don't have wide receivers running wide open.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the LSU game plan, I mean, it exposed a lot. I mean, I would do anything, straight blitzes, stunts, twists, lots of, because not only has Cade looked confused when you do that, the offensive line has not done a good job at passing those off and being set in their protections either. So, you couple those two things together, and it's like, it doesn't matter if Bryant Wesco breaks open down the field, because is Cade going to see him, or is he going to look down and try to escape the pocket, too soon, or is he not going to be able to find his check downs or his outlets? Those are things that through two games we haven't seen him do very well, and it's been really frustrating because you see the opportunities there and they're not being made. I see some people in the chat talking about Clemson's tight ends. Olsen Pat Henry has been great. He's caught everything that's been thrown to him, but he doesn't get the ball thrown to him enough.
One target last week.
Yeah, one target last week. Christian Bendiker, the redshirt freshman, who I think is going to be one of the better tight ends to come through Clemson, when it's all said and done. He's shown a lot of flashes. Doesn't get enough. He doesn't get on the field enough. Clemson obviously has no shortage of options, offensively, but it really comes down to the signal caller and the five guys protecting him, because they, and of course, the play caller himself, but it has to be, those guys have to execute, because we can blame Garrett Riley for so much, but then there are good play calls being made. There are plays to be had. The offensive output is not solely just because Garrett Riley's a fraud and all that. I mean, so that's the thing I'm waiting to see. I saw somebody in the chat ask about AJ Hoffler. What have you seen from him so far?
I could be wrong. I want to say he's been injured somewhat, and no, never mind. So he had 6 solo tackles versus Colorado. Well, he's got 6 solo tackles for the season. Okay. Truth is, I don't know. I'll tell you what's interesting to me about this game is that as a Tech fan, I would have loved for you to beat LSU by 2 scores and beat the full out of Troy.
Yeah.
And then be looking ahead in your schedule to whoever. So that didn't happen. So now you get a very focused, you're going to get the best Clemson team that you can get. Like, there's not going to be any looking ahead.
You would think.
But then you got Georgia Tech with issues, and we haven't beat you since 2015. So you got Tech looking to take a step up. So you're going to get the best scheme, game plan, preparedness from Tech as well. And that's another reason why I don't know what to think about this game. Like, I'm not even going to do a prediction for the game because I don't know. I'll probably preview it when we get off here. But I don't know, man. I don't know what Georgia Tech team's going to show up, what Clemson team's going to show up. Because, like, with Cade, sometimes when you see, like, you have hitters getting slumps, you have quarterbacks getting slumps. Sometimes they try and Brett Favre their way out of it and just sling it, and then that's goes really well or really horrible. So,
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly this game is kind of hard to get a read on. I think Jordan mentioned it earlier. This is going to be the biggest test so far for Clemson as far as stopping the run and seeing how much improved we are with doing that this year, which we were pretty awful last year at doing. We've been improved, but I still think we have some missed tackling issues. I still think we allow too many explosive runs through 2 games. We've done a much better job this year, but not a great job in any means when it comes to that. So that's kind of a key for me to the game is what does Clemson's run defense look like? Are they able to limit Georgia Tech's explosiveness on the ground? And if they are, you feel good about the outcome. But if they're not, it can turn into a long game pretty quickly, right? So it's an interesting game. It really is. I don't feel great about it, and it's kind of one of those things. It's not necessarily like a must win for Clemson, but it certainly feels like a must win for Clemson.
I'm calling it a must win.
With how
I'm going all the way.
Yeah, with how the season has started, and you look at Georgia Tech's schedule after Clemson, they have a pretty favorable schedule. So if you drop one to Georgia Tech, you could find your way on the outside looking in of the ACC championship game, because I think Georgia Tech is a pretty good team and can rattle off a lot of wins this year. So if you drop one to them, they got one up on you, and you could be that first team out of the ACC championship, even if you go on and have a better rest of the season. So it's kind of this is a much bigger deal. I mean, this was a game that we were looking at preseason as a game that obviously Clemson could potentially lose, sort of not a trap game, but kind of a weird game in that sense. But it's definitely ramped up in its importance to, I think, both teams, but particularly on Clemson's side, because the season has not gone well. And the national narrative around Clemson has drastically fallen from where people thought they were preseason. So you go out and lose this game. I mean,
I think the lines move.
It's kind of you start the season 1-2. Your only win being over Troy. Man, it's going to get ugly in Tiger Town. So Clemson's got to go out there and win this game. They really do. I think Georgia Tech could lose it, still be fine, and maybe even still find their way into the ACC championship game, even if they lose to Clemson. But I'm not so sure for the other way around for the Tigers.
Yeah, maybe it's hard to say. I mean, the lines move from 9.5 to 3.5, or somewhere about there. So that tells you the perception of what people think.
Yeah, that tells you where all the money's going. That tells you what people think.
A ton of money went down on Georgia Tech with minus 9.5. I think another key will be like a staple of Buster Faulkner's offense is motion and eye candy. So how disciplined will you be on defense? Go watch Georgia Tech this year or last. How many plays there were not motion in? Almost every single play there's motion, which one is going to signal, not every time, but are you in man or not? All right, so now we know you're in man, and if you are, we can just motion that guy out of where we want the play to go, and then you just got to be disciplined, because also both Haynes King and Jamal Haynes are great at cutting the ball back where it needs to go. So if you're not, you hear Nick talk about this, if you're not gap disciplined, Tech can definitely hurt you. And if we don't have to throw the ball, we're not. I mean, if you just let us run on you, we'll run.
That's what worries me, is those cutback runs, those back-breaking runs where you could see a world where Tech's kind of beating their head against a brick wall, and then it takes one cutback and it's a 60-yard explosive run, right? Those are just runs that they critically kill a defense. They're back-breaking runs. They're demoralizing, right? You get them to 3rd and 5, or even Clemson this year. One of the parts of their defense they need to clean up is 3rd and long. They are allowing far too much success from teams on 3rd and long. So that's the part that worries me about Tech, is those explosive runs. And they're not going to rattle off 15 yards every time they run the football. but it's those, 3 yards, 5 yards, and then a 40-yarder, right? And it just wears your defense out. And if Clemson's offense isn't any better in this game and they're still sputtering and stumbling and there's a bunch of 3 and outs, like, you can find yourself in a bad way.
Yeah, and what does Georgia Tech want to do? We want to control the clock. I mean, how do you beat teams that are better than you? Well, you got to win. You got to score. Let's keep that part of Clemson off the field and just not let you have an opportunity to score with an 8-minute drive down the field. That's what Georgia Tech wants to do.
Yeah, shorten the game, limit the number of possessions. I mean, that creates wider variance. I mean, that's just numbers. And so, that's it. And Georgia Tech has, through the Brent Key era, they have been really good at that. And that's, and the big games they have won have been, where they've done a good job at controlling the clock, being the team that wins the time of possession, which Clemson has lost in both games they've played. And it's been to their it was really to their detriment against LSU. And it at a certain point, it's like, okay, you can't keep losing the time of possession by 7+ minutes. I mean, your defense is going to give up. They're going to give up drives. They're going to get gassed. It's just the nature of human beings. So that worries me a ton too, because this defense, especially in recent years, they've, as talented as they've been, and they've had some really great players, they get worn down. The dam kind of breaks sometimes, and in some of those big games last year, we saw that. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's the other interesting thing about Tech. Like, Tech's problems have been dropping games you shouldn't, like Bowling Green and whatnot. What their problem hasn't been is getting up for big games. I think I forget what the stat is. He's like 6-1 against ranked ACC opponents. I mean,
that's not good. I don't like that stat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Miami comes into town. You have a MacGyvered together Haynes King that later it came out couldn't throw more than 5 yards.
Yeah.
And they play hokey pokey with King and Philo and beat the best Miami team we've seen. I don't know, since Testaverde was there. I don't know. I don't even know if he played there, but it doesn't matter. He gets up for big games though. So that's another kind of like, man, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing I'll ask you about this, on Clemson's side that has been pleasantly surprising has been special teams. Clemson's punting game. The one thing that we were the most unsure about coming into the season has been truly a strength, and you needed it to flip the field with the offensive struggles. But Jack Smith is averaging over 45 yards a punt. He's been pretty phenomenal, and was not expecting that, and not what I was hearing out of camp. So it goes to show some guys are just not practice guys. So as far as Georgia Tech's side of things, where do you think special teams will play? Whether it's kicking, punt, return game, especially they definitely have some guys that have some juice. Where do you think that'll be a part of the game they utilize?
Well, first, that Miami wasn't great. They had the best offense in the country last year.
Yeah, they averaged like 40 points a game. Like, they're the number one offense and the number one overall pick at quarterback.
Their defense was pretty suspect, but I mean, they had the number one overall pick on their team. Either way, as far as Georgia Tech special teams, it's been a little bit of a clown show. During the Colorado game, they put a white dress on a guy. He was wearing a quadruple X jersey for no discernible reason, just to do it. And then he took what probably should have been a safety, but they put it down on the 1 yard line. So I have no idea what that was. I even got mad because Brent Key kind of made light of it. And I'm like, what you did? Why? All this money, you got $20 million in revenue share. You've got, all these players making $1 million. You can't afford a $300 jersey or whatever what are you doing, man? We had a muffed punt.
He looked like one of them kids running around, like a coach's kid running around on the sideline with a jersey on.
Yeah.
Well, during the stream, I said, put my fat ass out there. At least the jersey would fit me. I'm not going to get slung down by my jersey. It's going to be skin tight. You put Buddy from Remember the Titans out there. I don't know what that was.
Why? So why'd they put that jersey? Was there double numbers on the field? Is that why?
I think that's why.
Probably.
Yeah.
Which also, side note, why did we have multiple numbers for the same player, or the same player has the same number? You can have an offensive number 3, you can have a defensive number 3. Just one. Anyone who's done data science, I know I'm a nerd. Unique number. Unique. Why? Why do we have defensive linemen that are number 0? Why do we have number 0? Numbers are weird. You can't divide by it. Why are defensive linemen wearing it? If you divide by it, you can literally make that positive or negative infinity, depending on which limit side you take from positive or negative number. Anyways, the special teams have been super hit or miss, though. What do you think? Do you think Clemson wins? If I put a gun to your head, said you got to put your life savings on who wins this game, what do you think?
I mean, okay. So if I were a neutral observer, which it's hard to speak because obviously I'm not a neutral observer.
Yeah.
You can't eliminate that. But when I look at football games, I mean, especially in college football, I always tend to err on the side. Okay, more talented team wins 60-70% of the time in college football. But that, talent is also hard to quantify, and that's what makes it difficult. The thing with this game is, and you kind of touched on it, the fact that Clemson is 2 games in and they haven't looked good is almost give you more pause at picking them to lose this game, because you're just waiting for the law of averages to kind of show its head and say, okay, the team that has this potential is playing way below it right now, and when is that moment that they put it together? I don't know if it's going to be this game. For last season, especially for Clemson's offense, that game was immediately after Georgia, App State. They put up like 50 points in the first half. It was an offensive explosion we haven't seen in Clemson in quite some time. But Georgia Tech is not App State, and this game, I mean, this particular team shouldn't have to have gone through the struggles they've gone through 2 weeks with all that they had returning at quarterback, coordinator, offensive line, receiver, you name it. So I want to say this is a bounce back week for Clemson, but I don't know if it's going to be I don't know if it's going to be as pretty as maybe Clemson fans would want it. I don't think this is a game where Clemson's like, oh, the offense just wakes up and they put up 45 points.
You know what would be, Jordan, what would be the most Clemson thing ever with how this season's gone so far is the offense figures it out on Saturday and the defense struggles.
Dude.
That would be the most Clemson thing ever.
Like 48 to 45.
Like 2022 Wake Forest. DJ puts up.
There's legitimately a world where I could see this game being like 42 to whatever, like a shootout almost.
45-42.
I'm half joking, but I could seriously see that happen. I could totally see with how this season's going for Clemson, their offense going out there and we're like, finally. And then the defense can't stop the run.
Yeah.
And Georgia Tech scoring a bunch of points as well. I could totally see that happening. If I had a gun to my head and I had to pick, I'm going to roll with Clemson just because of talent. And I feel like because they've struggled early this season, they're due to cause some damage on offense. But again, I don't feel great about it. I don't feel great either way. But yeah, I would have to go to Clemson. But I don't think Clemson's going to go in there and blow Georgia Tech off the field. That's not happening.
I think this is going to be an ugly football game. I think it's going to be an ugly football game. Yeah. I really do. I think Tech is going to do a good job of mucking things up. They're going to do a lot in the ground game, like Rec Talk mentioned, in terms of ball control. And I think Clemson is still going to have its struggles in the passing game. And maybe they established the run a little bit better. Maybe they figured something out in the second half against Troy, and maybe lean on and actually give the ball to your 6'2", 230-pound back. Yeah, he's a receiver, a converted receiver, but he moves pretty well at that size. I mean, I wouldn't want to tackle him, and Troy certainly didn't want to tackle him in that second half.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I would not pick Georgia Tech to win this game if you put a gun to my head. One, we haven't won it since 2015, and I've said, look, I'm not picking Georgia Tech to beat Clemson or Georgia until they do it once. Like, I got to see it. Like, you got to get over this hump of just getting dominated by your damn rivals. I mean, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. So I think it's going to be an ugly game on both fronts. Like, I can't believe I didn't catch more flack for this from my own fan base. I ranked Georgia Tech in the middle of the pack of the ACC because I'm like, look, you're not going to turn the ball over 5 times in 2 games, and I'm gonna be that impressed with you. Like, that's going to get your ass run off the field in this game probably. Like, you're not going to be able to give Clemson 2 or 3 extra possessions. You also can't control the clock when you give the ball away.
True.
So they got to get that figured out. And I don't have any reason to think that changes in this game. Why would I think that?
Yeah, and that's one thing that Clemson did. I mean, in that miraculous comeback against Troy last week, that was what they did well in the second half was they got the turnovers. The Clemson's defensive backs, I think they've surprised. Some of them have surprised me in a lot of ways. I think their safeties have been a really nice. They've been really nice, and I wasn't really sure what to think. They were replacing a longtime starter in R.J. Mickens, but Ronan Hannafin is an emerging star at safety. Tink Kelly has played a good bit, and you haven't heard his name called a whole bunch, which is good to hear. I mean, he's a guy that we weren't really sure about. He was kind of deeper in the depth chart, but he's played more than I thought. Ricardo Jones, I think, has all the talent in the world, and I think he's only going to get better. So, they made plays against Troy in terms of turning the ball over. Now, will they get a turnover where the ball bounces off of one defender's butt and then and then the other one picks it up and takes? I don't think you're going to get that kind of. Well, I don't know. Maybe it would be a very Tech thing to do. But I don't think we're going to see a repeat of that. But I do think turnovers are going to play a huge role in this game because Cade Klubnik has, Clemson in general, offensively, they've turned the ball over. Whether it was they turned it over twice against Troy this past week with the Adam Randall fumble and then the pick six tipped off the defensive lineman, caught by the defensive lineman. So, it's going to be a game of, who can play this game the cleanest, and neither team has played their games clean so far. So that's going to be it's going to be a hell of a thing to watch, and going to be miserable for both of us, or all 3 of us, in terms of watching that. So
I got a feeling I'm going to be pissed off watching this game. So
yes.
Just one of those things.
I'm with you.